Hey everybody, welcome to Example of Play. Today we are looking at Flashpoint Campaigns Cold War and going into the Artillery Operations tutorial. We've already seen some artillery action in the previous couple missions, but this one is going to be going all in on learning about the different types of artillery units, the different missions, and how to control them and use them effectively. So we're going to cover quite a bit about artillery here. We'll go ahead and load up the scenario, leave everything on defaults. And then we arrive in the mission. You can see it's nighttime and we have quite a few artillery units. So we'll walk through these, what each one of these things is, and then we'll go through how to plot different types of missions and control our artillery effectively. Before we dive into the artillery stuff though, one thing to update from a previous video, I did get feedback on how to use the line of sight tool to select locations besides where a unit actually is. So if you do Control L or hit LOS here, you can see what a unit is able to see by clicking on it. You get the range rings, detection rings, and then what they can see. And then the green hard outline is the range of their weapons engagement range. So that varies depending on the unit. But you can also do shift and click a spot and you'll see what the unit's LOS would be like from that position. So this is relative to each unit. So for example, if we select that headquarters, it doesn't have any weapons. So there's no engagement range. No matter where you put it, it doesn't really change. Versus if we select, say, our artillery and then put them up on a hill, they see things a little differently. So just shift click, but you're getting the LOS relative to the unit you have selected. So I just wanted to cover that real quick. Now let's get on to this mission. Now let's go down our list of units here. So for this scenario, we have a lot of different artillery and artillery related units available to us. The first three are all, we need to see the little FA there for field artillery. So these are M109A2 self-propelled artillery, so Paladin vehicles. That if we look here, this is a whole company, so quite a bit of firepower here. They can do several different types of missions. They are maneuverable since they're tracked vehicles, and they have a really long range. If we zoom out, we actually see the max range is down here, 20 kilometers. So they can hit pretty much the entire map from their starting position and not even need to move up. But as we saw in the previous mission, they're able to be preset to maneuver every time they complete a fire mission, change hexes so that they don't get hit by enemy artillery. So we have three of those. If we come down here, we see these are going to be FO party units. So instead of being artillery, these are forward observers. So FO for forward observers. And this one, these are just basically like a small team of a few infantry equipped with laser rangefinders, binoculars, and whatnot to help spot for our artillery. So not a unit to get into combat, a unit to get on a nice high place where they can see a lot of the map to help us out. This Fist V is basically the same thing, but it's a vehicle, so forward observer vehicle with all kinds of equipment on it to help with spotting for artillery. Then next, MTR, this is a mortar unit. And so we can see it is basically like an APC with a big heavy mortar in the back. And here we have a section of them, so 4 of them that can maneuver. Where the difference between them and your big artillery is they're not as heavy, but they're very maneuverable, they're fast, and they're able to tag along with your ground forces and kind of just follow behind them to give fire support. If we notice here the range ring, so the max range for them is much shorter, so can still cover a pretty good chunk of the map, but they'll need to keep moving up with your forces as they advance. So that's the main difference, is they're a little faster, lighter, and can stay with your ground forces and give direct support to them. Versus your big artillery that's blasting all the way across the map. Now this WLR is a special unit. It's off map here. This is a weapons locating radar unit. And so think of more of this as like a feature that you have for a scenario versus a unit that you're doing anything with. So we have no control over it. It's a core level asset, but it is going to feed us information about if the enemy artillery fires somewhere. It's going to tell us where it is and feed that as a fire mission that we can use our artillery to counter battery and hit the enemy weapons. So a very, very useful thing to have, but not something we're directly controlling. But it's going to give us information, but just good to know if you have one of those available to you or not. And then last on the list, last but not least, certainly is a rocket launcher system. So MLRS, this is big, heavy artillery rockets that can fire. Obviously, very heavy rocket that can be used. This is kind of your premier. If you've got a high priority target, you're going to use this thing to absolutely obliterate it. But it can also be used for multi-hex fire, so you can actually have it saturate a couple hexes at the same time because these are such big, heavy rockets. or you can use it for precise targeting of like an enemy HQ or enemy artillery battery if one comes up. This unit is also off the map, so we don't see it on the map, but it is available to us. All right, so now we're going to look at what is actually our mission here. If we open up our operations, we get a mission briefing, and it's going to go through here and basically kind of like the engineering mission. We're going to do several different types of fire missions and go over all of those, and then dig into a couple more advanced concepts than what we've seen in the previous using the artillery. And like the engineering mission, we have a map here with the preset targets and things on it in the phases. So we can just come out here and do import graphics from briefing to put that on the map, so it makes it a little easier to just target where we need to fire. And we can see there's some red diamonds of a few known enemy positions or suspected enemy positions. So let's start stepping through those phases. You can also come up here, actually before we get started, one more thing. The fire support option here under staff gives us a whole menu for our fire support. So like in engineering mission, we saw the engineers have one tab that tells you where all your engineer units are and what they're doing. This has got its own menu for artillery. So we have first the list of assets broken up. We have mortars, artillery, and area fire. And so we can see the status of all our units. Some useful stuff here is seeing how much ammo they have, seeing what they're currently doing. So like they're all acting in support of all units, and they have a couple minutes of latency. So if a mission comes up, it's going to take a couple minutes for that info to get relayed to them and them to respond. We can see that they're all under the Fire Support Coordination Center control right now, and then which we'll talk about that in a minute. And then you can see like if they had some mission that they were doing, it would show here what they were doing. And then like they're in Fire Support Group A, Fire Support Group B. So this is where you can kind of just see how all your units are organized. If there were any fire missions going on, they'd show up here. So the ones that are actively happening and ones that are planned will start to fill out here, and you can edit those from here if you want to. And then we'll cover the Fire Support Control Center here and Counter Battery as those things come up. But in Counter Battery, we can see we got that radar unit available, and we have the MLRS with counter battery orders. So that process can almost be automated of responding to those targets, and you can see what you got assigned to that right here. Now we're just going to follow along. I'm just going through the tutorial that's available in the PDF. Comes with the game, just stepping through it. You can go in there to get any details if I missed something. But first, we're going to just plot a standard artillery mission. We're just going to choose our first field artillery unit. We can right click it here, do HE suppression, and then that's going to bring this up where we plot targets. If you've watched other videos, you've seen this before, but we'll go over it just in case. And then we'll just target this hill right here. We can target up to 6 hexes, but we're just going to do 1 and say commit. And then once you commit, this will come up giving you more details. So you can change all kinds of things about the mission, even after you've plotted it. You can drag it around to say, oh, I'm in actually that hex. You can change what type of mission it is. So we can change it to neutralizing versus suppression, or even illumination. If we wanted to do that, which we'll see later, you can choose different types of ammunition. You can choose how many rounds you want to fire. So from your total, so you can say, actually, we want to conserve some ammo. We just want to fire 10 rounds. We want to blast them away. We want to fire all the rounds. So either way, you can adjust that. You can delay time of impact. So you can coordinate this. If say you've got other units on the way to a location, you can have this fire mission hit at a certain time versus immediately. And you can say how much time. So you could say, hey, I want you to fire 30 rounds, 25 rounds, but I want it to be over 25 minutes. So 1 round per minute. Not going to be very destructive, but it's going to keep a little pressure on the enemy for that long period of time, versus you could say, I want you to fire all 25 rounds in 5 minutes, which is going to bring them all down really fast, be very destructive, but that barrage isn't going to last very long, so it'll be over in 5 minutes. You can also edit this from here. So if say you plotted 3 or 4 points, you could come over here and do these edits for each point you had plotted individually. So you can get very customized in here if you want to. But we'll just leave this as it is here. Sure. And then if you do change anything, you just hit apply. And then like I said, you can come down here and edit each of one of those and apply your changes and then close it. And then that fire mission is all set up. We see this orange line showing us, hey, this unit is firing on this hex. And this is what it's dropping, even though that 1's kind of in the way there. But you can see the time and how many rounds are on that hex. But yeah, it'd be nice if that 1 wasn't quite so much in the way right there. And then as an example, we're going to select our B field artillery unit, and we're going to set it to counter battery here. And then come over here and note that our 3 artillery units now show different statuses. So in the bottom right, it tells you what that unit's doing. So this one, C, has O for on call, since we haven't assigned them any particular mission. A has B for barrage, because we've given them a fire mission. And then B has C for counter battery fire. So you can kind of tell at a glance what each one of these guys is doing for this mission. And then with that one set to counter battery, if some enemy artillery showed up, they would be set to automatically respond. And then we can still give them other missions, but they won't be able to do counter battery if we're giving them an active, manually giving them some other mission. But we'll go ahead and hit start to see how this plays out. First 15 minutes. We'll see that there could be some enemy units out there being active. And then our artillery should fire pretty much immediately because we gave that order in the pre-mission phase. So the mission hadn't started yet, so it's like preset artillery barrage. So there it goes, firing away. Now later, of course, once the scenario has already started, when you give an artillery fire mission, it's going to take it a little bit of time to get that information, respawn, and fire, versus at the start of the mission. Now we see we spotted some enemy units down there. Seems like it could be that they're barraging that bridge, that town right there, and we're picking that up. All right, and we see this unit they picked up, counter battery order from the Fire Support Coordination Center that they're responding to, and they're automatically firing down here. So we didn't even have to do anything. They automatically responded to that enemy artillery activity down there and are firing. Now we won't always know if we scored a kill or not because we can't directly observe these hexes always, but we might. If we can see it, we'll see like the little thing pop up with a little explosion letting us know, hey, we scored a kill. But these are kind of firing based on just knowing the enemy artillery is there from its activity versus we can't actually directly observe what's happening there. Now we're going to do a illumination mission. And also you may have noticed your artillery, after they completed their fire missions, they'll automatically maneuver and basically move over 1 hex, so they avoid that counter battery fire themselves. That's part of their SOPs. You can change it, but highly recommended that you leave that on as their standard behavior because you don't want them getting wiped out by enemy counter battery fire. Now for the illumination mission, the manual says to use the Charlie company, but they actually don't have any illumination rounds. They have the mines, so we'll just use Alpha again. So we'll right click on them, come down here to Barrage, and then you see they have the option for illumination. Process is basically the same as the normal Barrage, but of course we're firing basically big flares to light up an area. And it looks like we have suspected enemy units here, so we'll just target that little cut between those hills there and say commit. And you'll notice that they can actually hit a larger area, which this is all black, where here it should be like yellow like this. So I don't know, it might be a little graphical error. Basically, your illumination rounds can light up a big area, but this is relative to how large the artillery unit that's firing is. So if it's like a little 60mm mortar, it's only going to light up 1 hex. If it's your big full-scale artillery units, you're going to light up a large, big radius, like 5 hexes across, or 5 hex radius. If we come down here, we can change these things just like with the HE rounds, but you'll notice the default behavior is 1 round per minute versus firing several of them at once. There's no advantage of overlapping illumination missions or firing multiple rounds at the same time. Basically 1 per minute is going to light up this area. Now, obviously, if we're firing, it's 01:15, so it's very dark out there. Firing these rounds is going to let our units see, or let all units see better in that area, so you can light up your own units, so be aware of that. These aren't going to damage the enemy or anything, but it's going to make it easier for your units to spot anything in that area, or the enemy units as well, so bear that in mind. One thing I noticed in the details here is that your units will not automatically avoid illumination, so just be aware of that. And there are ways that it can be automatically triggered. So your units say, it lists out a whole bunch of triggers here for why units will automatically generate these missions. So it could be your units are fighting the enemy and it's dark and they can't see them, and they'll generate a fire support request. And then the Fire Support Coordination Center will automatically send an illumination mission if the conditions are right and artillery is available to do that. So be aware these can be fired automatically as well. So we'll close that, and then I don't think there's anything else we needed to do, just play it and see what happens. All right, so we're firing Illumination, and then we'll see the yellow there. So these guys are acting automatically. So all right, so the yellow flare hits there, illuminates that area, and we spotted an enemy artillery battery right there. So that's very helpful. Pick those guys up real quick because we have this forward observer team right there nearby. And also we can see Illum, so right here on the circle got Illum till 140. So that area is going to be illuminated for another 11 minutes. So very useful firing off one of those rounds. You could also time these, so just like with the other missions, you can set it to land at a certain time instead of immediately. So say you had a ground element that was moving on a town and you wanted to, and you knew the enemy's there, you could have these illumination rounds land over the enemy area just as your forces are kind of like in position to engage and light up those enemies in coordination with your ground assault. So bear that in mind. You can coordinate these. All these things can be coordinated. They don't have to be immediately firing. They can all be set up to go at a certain time. Next up is phase 3. So we're going to do a pre-planned strike. So we're kind of talking about that as an idea. Now let's try to put it into practice and do one. I kind of rewound the scenario a little bit here because I was playing around with it and messing things up. But we're going to go in and say, okay, actually, turning back the clock, we don't want to illuminate that position. We want to change, get rid of that. And we're going to have both of these artillery companies fire on this hilltop. Well, actually, let's just for fun, we'll say we're going to fire on both of these hilltops at the same time. Imagine we've got some ground forces that are moving up this road, and we know there's enemy positions on these two hills. We want to hit both hills at the same time. So to do that, we're just going to give each unit an order. Say HE neutralizing on that hill, and we're going to have it, instead of being ASAP, we're going to have it land at 1:30 is our go time. And so we're going to say, all right, 1:30. And then for this unit, we're going to do the same thing. I do this hilltop. And I actually did suppressing, so we won't change that. We'll change that to neutralizing. So they're both going to drop 30 rounds over 5 minutes on both hilltops at what time did I say? 1:30. We'll apply that. And we'll see how that plays out. We can also hit Control A to turn on all paths and all orders. So you can see they're both set to fire at 1:30 on both of those locations at the same time. Then we'll hit Start, which we might not actually get quite to it. Those guys are automatically firing a counter battery mission. It looks like we are inflicting some casualties. Got some little crosses down there. Now, how we know we're doing that, I don't know, but we're showing it. All right, now it's 1 minute to go time. So just imagine we've got our ground elements getting ready to move up the road, and here comes their supporting artillery barrage. Both firing at the same time on those targets on a delayed time. So that's just an example of how you can plan things out. Of course, there's a million different ways you could do that, but that's just a simple example there. You get rounds on two locations at the same time. And you could plot out multiple missions, so you could have like a rolling barrage. You could do that if you have several artillery units. You could line up several hexes and then just set the times to sync up so that the barrage is just moving down a road or through a town in coordination, and then have your ground forces, you know, about when they're going to arrive, and they can just follow along behind it using the same kind of system to time their movement orders. Now, of course, that's all planned out. How it actually plays, you know, could be different. I don't know if you can hear my dog barking away in the background. He's very excited. Okay, so that was a pre-planned strike. Okay, phase 4. So this is counter battery fire. Now, we've already seen this in action. We've already kind of hit on it a few times, but just to hammer it home, counter battery fire is going to happen when you have units set to either on call or to counter battery. The difference being, if they're set to on call, they're going to respond to all kinds of fire support requests. So it could be just regular fire missions, could be illumination rounds, could be counter battery. If they're set to counter battery, they're going to only respond to counter battery requests. So they're going to be dedicated to that task. So how you want to set that up is, of course, up to you. The main advantage of doing this is that rather than you needing to manually target enemy artillery positions that you either know or suspect, you set them to this, they're going to automatically do it, which could happen in between your command cycles. So something to definitely think about. These missions we've been doing so far, our command cycle is really short, like 15, 20 minutes. It's entirely possible, even when you're playing as NATO, that you could get in a mission where that command cycle gets out a lot longer, like 30 minutes. And now you need to have those units have their orders in between you being able to change anything so that they automatically respond. So the mission requests are going to come from just either your own units spotting enemy artillery, from that artillery firing, and your various sensors picking it up and telling you where it thinks they are. If you have like the weapon locating radar, that's going to help you a lot, but you're not always going to have this available. And something to note is that it's not always scanning. So basically, it scans for so long, and then it turns off, and then it can also relocate. So it's kind of doing the same thing. It's trying to stay alive. And then you don't have any control over this, so you can't necessarily change it, but you can be aware of what it's doing. It's not always scanning 100% of the time. But anyway, however those enemy units are detected, it goes to your fire support control center, and it'll pop up and say, hey, we spotted it, we want to assign this mission, and then it'll dish it out to your units that are either set to on-call or counter battery, and then they'll fire at those enemy targets. So I know it's kind of like going over it again, but just wanted to hammer it home because that is very important. If you can take out the enemy artillery, then your artillery is freer to fire and not being in danger. Now we're going to look at Phase 5, DPICM Fire Mission. So this is dual purpose improved conventional munitions. These are going to come from our MLRS, so our rocket launcher unit that's off map. And it's going to fire some big rockets that are then going to drop multiple bomblets over a big area that just are going to shred anything caught out in the open that's not like an armored tank or heavily armored vehicle is going to be just devastated by this. So this is a really powerful option if you catch the enemy maneuvering in the opening, or like they're getting ready to go in for an attack or something, and you know where they are, or you catch their logistics or their supply units in the backfield. Basically, anytime you see a large enemy formation, this is what you want to pound them with. Unless it's like just tanks, but anything else is going to be really effective. If you've followed the war in Ukraine, you've probably heard of these. Just a couple of these rockets catching like an infantry formation out in the open can just like wipe out a whole unit in one strike. So to do this, it's basically the same. We're going to come to Barrage here on our MLRS unit, and we'll see that the ICM is the only option for them. We're going to plot a mission right here, is kind of just where it tells us to for this tutorial, even though we can't see anything there right now. Now you'll see it's only targeting one hex right now, but if we hit area fire here, we can apply that and hit this whole one hex adjacent in every direction. So it can hit a big area. We can drop, we have there's 3 units in there. Each one's got 12 rockets. So we'll crank it up, why not? And fire off everything they got, all 36 rounds over 2 minutes. So if there's anything there, it's going to be just absolutely devastated. And it's going to hit really fast because they're ready to go. So we'll go ahead and hit proceed. Enemy artillery is still firing right there, so we gotta wait for them or our rockets come in. All right, so now our strike's coming in, 36 rounds over 2 minutes over that whole area. Now visually here, you didn't see a whole lot. Basically, it just came in, did its thing. But if there were enemy units there, if we could see them, should have been highly effective. But you can just see the speed of which those can come in, just drop everything they got. Now they're at 0, they'll have to reload, but drop 36 big rockets over 7 hexes in less than 2 minutes. So a very powerful option there if you have it available to you. Now finally, Phase 6, we're going to look at a scatterable mines mission, or fast cam. We did this in the engineering video, but just in case you didn't watch it there, or just to be thorough, we're going to do it here again. So this works the same way as an HE barrage, except we're going to deploy a minefield to a hex to deny the enemy moving through there or just slow them down. So we'll just select the fast cam option here. And let's say, just for fun, we know they're going to be crossing, come down the highway right here. So we'll drop some rounds. We might even do 2 hexes, why not? We'll say commit, and we'll see that, okay, we're dropping rounds, minelet deployment, and they're going to hit that hex. One thing to note is that you have to drop at least 40 rounds to create a minefield. So if you have less than that, it won't work. There won't be a minefield created. And then obviously don't drop them on delay your own fallback positions or where your own units are going to need to cross, because like we talked about in the engineering video, these minefields are going to be neutral, so they're just as dangerous to you as they are to the enemy. So yeah, we'll create 2 minefields on this one, and we'll see that you can set this to fire less than 40 rounds, but it won't work, so don't do that. So we'll just hit start and just do this. And you'll only be able to do this if that unit has this option available. So like in this mission, we have 3 artillery companies that look similar, but they actually have different munitions available to them. So not all of them will always be able to do the minefield. So kind of plan that ahead on that and be aware of what your options are. The enemy is really pounding away at that town up there. Good thing none of our guys are hanging out there. Alright, so now you see we've created a minefield there. So 1, then the next one will be the next fire mission there to create another minefield. But you can see it's yellow, meaning that it is just as dangerous to everybody, since we know it's there, but we don't know where those individual mines are because they're scattered over that hex. Okay, so that actually brings us to the end of what's in the manual for this mission. We saw how to do all the different types of artillery fire missions. We saw how counter battery fire can work, how all this can be set up to work automatically if you just have all your units set to on call or dedicated to counter battery, and how you need to make sure your units are maneuvering after firing so that they don't get destroyed by enemy counter battery fire. How to do a pre-planned coordinated strike on 2 hexes at the same time, how to do area fire with your rocket launchers, how to drop a minefield, hit a lot of stuff. We didn't use our mortar unit in this scenario, but it works basically the same way, except obviously its range is much smaller, so you'll need to be maneuvering it more actively with your forces moving up across the map, as the case may be. We saw our forward observer units. Don't necessarily need to do anything actively with them, just have them in good positions, where they will be able to coordinate that fire more quickly, more accurately, if they're in good spots to see enemy units and bring it in. And then we looked at the fire support tab here, where you can come in and see. So now we do have this fire mission going here. It's the only one we have planned right now, is that minefield deployment, which you can come here and just select that unit, find it, and change its orders if you wanted to, so you know what they're doing. And then in a larger mission where there's a lot going on, you'll be able to come in here and see a whole list of fire support requests. So this one, there's not really too much happening, so it's not here. But if you were in a normal mission, you'd see a bunch of requests pop up here, and you'd see how they're being prioritized. And then you can also come in here if you want to get more tricky with it. You can set these fire support groups, and then you can actually come in here and tweak like your priority, what you want to prioritize, what type of targets for supporting and attacking the enemy. We won't get into that, since the defaults are the defaults for a reason. They're pretty good, but if you wanted to, you could come in here and get crazy with tweaking what you want your units to do automatically, and then put them in these different fire support groups, where you can actually prioritize it differently for different units. And I think that covers pretty much everything. So next video, we will be looking at air support, which has its own. We've seen the basics, pretty straightforward, but there are several more advanced kind of nuanced topics to cover of the different types of air support, especially the seed missions, which are always exciting. So we'll look at that in the next video. Be sure you hit like and subscribe so that you get that one when it pops up. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.